thank you everyone again. My name is Sean Barker. I'm the Director of Strategic Partnerships at Textbroker, and today I'm very excited to introduce everyone to Hunter Boyle. He is the Senior Business Development Manager at AWeber Communications, and he's going to be presenting today creating content that converts and how to build stronger relationships with email and social media. So without further ado, Hunter, I'll pass it off to you.
Thanks very much, Sean, and thank you everyone for joining us, especially Sean and Textbroker. Thanks very much for inviting me to talk about this topic. Again, just as far as a heads up goes, we are going to use the hashtag content for this. It's pretty simple and easy. It's pretty short. I like short hashtags. And if you get any good ideas, tips, things like that you feel like tweeting, please feel free to share them with your circles. My Twitter hashtag is Hunter Boyle, as you can kind of see on the screen, spelled sort of like it sounds. And again, I'd love to connect with you guys afterwards, get your feedback. So in addition to the survey at Logout, please feel free to use Twitter for sharing any of the ideas or tips or questions, things that you get here. I'll also be using the Q&A feature in GoToWebinar, so we're going to try and keep an eye on that and handle some Q&A at the end. And just really quickly, as soon as I get my system set up over here. As Sean mentioned, I am the Senior Business Development Manager for AWeber. We are a email service provider that works primarily with small and mid-sized businesses and independents, bloggers, a lot of publishers. So content is something that we do particularly well. We know for for our audience, content is a very big factor. Been around since '98. The company and myself have been doing digital marketing over that time. I actually started as an editor as well as a marketer before moving into business development. So email and content is a big part of what I've done over the years. We obviously love trying to help organizations do better with both of these things. And my particular goal for today is that everyone here gets at least 2 to 3 ideas that you can take from this and use right away. You don't need to be a small business. If you're an enterprise business, if you're a nonprofit, whether you're B2B, B2C, we're going to talk about some foundational principles as well as a couple of tactical issues and examples. So really trying to get a nice mix there so you can think strategically as well as get some really fast takeaway ideas to use for both your email channels as well as your social. And when I say social, that includes blogging. So let's dive in and get started right here. This is one of my favorite presentations and decks that I've seen over the past year. This is something that I think, the reason I include this and urge all marketers to keep this concept in mind, as we all know from being in this field, those of us who are familiar with content marketing and have been using it even for a little while, we've seen over the past year or two the volume of content has really gone through the roof, right? This is a presentation, it's a great one actually, by Velocity Partners and Doug Kessler over in the UK. I highly recommend it. Just search for it on SlideShare. I guarantee it'll make you laugh as well as think. And one of the things that we're really going to be talking about today is kind of a foundational principle is with all of the focus now on content marketing from all sides, how are we going to take what we do, whether we've been doing it for a while or whether we're just new to this, and how are we going to make it stand apart, right? How are we going to make it, quote, survive the deluge, or deluge. I always mess that up. We're going to look at a couple of different areas and ways that we can do that, but really the big question that we want to answer that's going to help us get around that issue is how are we going to build relationships, not just lists, right? How are we going to focus on quality and connecting with our audiences in both email and social media channels rather than just trying to build a list of 10,000, 20,000, 50,000 emails or fans that hardly ever respond. We're going to look at some ways to do that. But one of the things that I really want to point out up front, one of the easiest, one of the most direct and straightforward ways is to really start talking to our audiences directly. This is a great infographic from the Pivot Conference, and I think this really shows a lot of the issues that we face in our content marketing, whether it's email, social, or other channels as well. If you look at that right there, 76% of marketers feel they know what their consumers want. On the other hand, only 34% of us are actually asking consumers what they want. So think about that. That is less than half who are really taking the time, and there are very easy and quick ways to do this, and we'll look at a couple that are super, super effective, that we can really figure out what it is our audience needs from us, what they want, and how we can get them to help us deliver it so that it's going to resonate more, so that it's going to lead to conversions, whether it's leads, whether it's sales, whether it's demand gen or brand awareness, whatever, or all of the above, whatever aspects we're using our marketing for in email and social channels to get them to the actions that we want them to take and to get them to understand that we're fulfilling their needs. We need to ask. Otherwise, what we end up with is something like this. This is an email that unfortunately was leaked on social media a few weeks ago after a conference, and I've used it a couple times in presentations. Unfortunately, I think Jen from Magic Logics is probably looking for me right now and is out for blood. It's not to embarrass them or call them out. It's actually just an example that I like to use because it cuts very close to home, right? When we think about how we're using email as marketers, a lot of times we are doing just what this email does, right? We're looking to fill space. We have a schedule, whether it's weekly, bi-weekly, whether it's monthly, quarterly, whatever it is. We have our email schedule, we have our goals, and we have our space to fill, right? All the news that's fit to print has now become a little bit different. It's everything that we need to squeeze into our schedule, and this is often how that comes off, right? We know what we need to say, but this is not only how we end up constructing our emails sometimes, but because this has been sort of the status quo for a lot of email marketing over the years, this is how a lot of readers see email these days. With inbox overload and email fatigue, this is what a lot of emails have really started to look like. And we've seen with the rise of smarter webmail clients like Mailbox, MailPilot, and some other ones, we're working on trying to fix that, but at the same time, we really have an issue with email. And with social, that's going to be even more so because now we're accustomed to seeing brands on a more personal level, right? We're accustomed to that direct connection that email didn't always offer, that one-to-one back and forth. So the stakes are getting higher, the bar is being raised, and we need to kind of get away from the process of approaching email as this kind of template that we just fill when we need to fill it rather than providing information and value when our audience needs it. So instead of emails like this, if we think about the kind of mindset that produced this email, so we're going to use the Q&A feature just to get a little bit of feedback on how we're doing with pacing and some questions, thoughts like that in GoToWebinar. How many of you might have seen the story on the Next Web and some other sites a few weeks ago about this fab.com email? It caused a nice little buzz because one of the bloggers for the Next Web was so impressed by getting an email that said, we noticed you haven't opened our Sunday through Thursday sales emails in a while, so we went ahead and opted you out. The last thing we want to do is clutter your inbox, right? Click here to opt back in or to customize your email preferences even further. Think about the mindset that it takes to put that email together, right? Now, Fab is a pretty cool brand. It is obviously, as a B2C site, can do a lot of things that maybe some B2B marketers feel a little constrained about doing, and then obviously a lot of marketers, no matter who they're working for, would feel very, very uncertain about setting up an email like this that could reduce their list size or automatically opting people out. So while it's not necessarily the email itself or the process of automatically opting out users and then asking them to opt back in, what I'm really talking about here is the thinking behind that says the last thing we want to do is clutter your inbox, right? Think about the level of respect that you feel when you receive something like that in your inbox. They respect your time. They respect that you're getting flooded with emails by probably dozens of other sites, if not more, and that if you haven't shopped for a while, it's probably unlikely that you will. So if you want to stop, that's fine. They know that the relationship is not an indefinite, and they went ahead and they put the reader first. They put the customer first. And honestly, a lot of these people who received these emails, not just the person who wrote the blog piece and raved about it, who also opted back in, they saw this as a wow moment. We'll talk a little bit about them later. And there's a lot of what's in it for me in here, and that actually helps with their retention. It's kind of one of those quirks, like the way that an oops email often gets higher open rates. You know, when you send a correction email following up on a mistake in a previous email, you see a bump in open rates. An email like this can actually help increase your retention or get people's attention if they haven't opened it for a little while, because it stands out in the inbox. And that's a big part of what we're going to look at how we can do today with email, and using email in a coordinated effort with social too. So the first way that we can do that is getting clear on what's in it for me, for our audience, right? Putting the audience first. We saw that perception gap slide, 74% don't ask, 36% do, and we need to figure out quick and easy ways that we can understand what our users and our customers and our audience, our readers, really want to know. Content audits. How many of you guys on this call right now, just a quick yes or no in the Q&A, are using content audits for your email programs and or some of your other marketing? And if you're not 100% sure what a content audit is, I'm going to cover that briefly. No, we've got a couple no's. Ah, there we go. We got a yes. Oh, good, good. So really, a content audit is very similar to what you might suspect it is. It's taking a hard look at your content across different streams or within different channels, like within email, and trying to figure out exactly what worked and why it didn't. So one that we did with one of our own newsletters here, a monthly newsletter that we send to our affiliate marketing audience, we took a look at 10 newsletter issues. This takes a while with a monthly newsletter, so we didn't wait for the full year. We've got 10 after the relaunch. We looked at our lead story content in the top 5 issues. We looked back at those and we saw that there were some trends emerging in those. Out of those top 5, 3 of them were ebook guides, 2 of them were webinars, 1 was a live invite and 1 was a replay. And the average response for those was over 20% open rate and almost a 4% click rate, which was pretty good. When we went back and we compared those to the bottom 5 newsletter issues, we looked at the lead story content there. We found that 4 of those were invites to upcoming webinars, like this one, and 1 of those was a video for an app integration. The average response rate was significantly lower. In fact, when we looked at that, we saw that just by playing towards the trends that we were receiving, that we were seeing in terms of our open rates and our click rates, if we were to focus more on what types of content were working in the top newsletter issues, we had a much better shot at hitting the high notes with those high open rates, those higher click rates, and the difference, the variance there, was 14% opens and 72% click rates. So how do you think that changed our approach to content in that newsletter? You can bet that we definitely shifted towards what was working for us and what had been playing to these strengths. The funny thing is, we had talked about webinars and we had done an initial survey with our readership, and they said, you know, we like training, we want training materials, we want to know how to use this and how that. So we thought webinars would obviously be a great way to provide that training, right? There's a lot of value, you get to ask questions, we all know the value of webinars, and you know, we thought we knew, right? We thought we knew what they wanted, what was best for them, even though we were asking the questions and heard about training. What we found out later was, well, that training obviously can be delivered in different ways. The webinar replays rather than the live was more effective, the ebook guides and the step-by-step. So we used that to change our content makeup for this list, and that's been a very positive response. All of these changes happened just earlier going into this year, so I'm looking forward to seeing how these trends continue again with our next survey. But this is a great example of how even listening can go a step further and getting more specific, more granular, auditing your content and kind of reading between the lines, looking at the analytics can really give you those insights. Here's another example from a welcome email. Many of you are probably familiar with the site socialtriggers.com, or Derek Halpern, who is a customer of ours. He's a great speaker. He does a lot of great interviews. The information on his blog and in his videos, I highly recommend it. He does a lot of smart stuff with email, which is why I end up featuring his emails a lot. This is a perfect example. His welcome email is one that does something that most welcome emails don't do. Now, there are two things that stand out, if you can see this. Thing number one is tying his social media channels in a very smart way. Instead of just using the social media icon buttons, you know, the little blue F and the little blue Twitter bird down at the bottom of the email, he puts those front and center, right? Thing number one, he wraps that in very direct copy. It's very conversational and very straightforward. Here's my Facebook link. Here's my Twitter link. It's a nice change of pace considering we're all running websites, right? It's very personable and approachable. Thing number two is the part that I like even more. He says he hosts meetups all over the world. I'm hosting, to find out when I'm hosting one near you, fill out the short form. It takes you 15 seconds, right? There's the what's in it for me, time expectations right up front. I ask for things like your name, email, and what major city is closest to you. What he doesn't mention on there, and I think is the most powerful question on that 4-question survey, is this one right here. Now look at that for just 1 second. Think about those questions. Those are the same kinds of questions that we ask or get asked at any type of networking event, right? Any type of business event when we're trying to build relationships and find people to connect with, right? Tell me a little bit about yourself. What type of business do you run? What company do you work for? What's the one thing you think I should know about you? The results for this very simple approach, as he has more than tripled his email list over about a year and a half, he takes those responses, puts them directly into a spreadsheet, compiles those, and those responses are used to directly drive just about all of the content that he does on his blog, on his social media channels, right, for his speaking engagements, his podcasts, and his video interviews, his socialtriggers.tv. Most of that really all comes right back to this simple question, number 4, right, a very direct, very simple, straightforward question that asks the users about themselves and what they want. Not only that, think about how that resonates for this audience, for the people who sign up for the email. First of all, they're being asked for their opinion, right? Not being sold something or being hit with me, or that blah, blah, blah right off the bat. So that input that they give is reflected in the content that they get in the email, which points to the blog and the videos. So think about how well that resonates with that audience, right? If you were asked a question and you answered it and you saw a couple weeks or a month later that that same topic that you responded to and said was a big need of yours is now being actually covered and discussed by the person who asked you that question, you would definitely think, well, that person's listening to me, you know, they're taking account of my needs, they're knowing and they're delivering what it is that I'm looking for. That's building a relationship right there. This is a huge part of why the list has grown as rapidly as it has and why the brand has grown with it. And just think about, you know, how quick you could add this to your own email, right? If you're not using welcome email right now, I would say right after this call, jump off. You can even steal this, you know, you can steal this format and just take that same question, test it, see what kind of response you get, see what kind of impact that's going to have on your content. And you can use the same approach in social too. A lot of brands do it in Facebook or on Twitter. You know, they ask these questions, but not everybody answers them in the social sphere. This is a great way to do that and combine the two and help email and social work together to build relationships and drive your content. Super powerful. A couple quick takeaways from that one. First, as we talked about, listening. That's what's really going to help build your relationships, not just your list, but your list grows from those relationships. You're not just looking for names and email addresses, You're looking to connect with an audience. That's what people want now. That's what we're trying to do in social. That's what we need to do in email. And using those two together, we've seen a couple of examples of how to do that. It's absolutely the most effective way to use those two together. Real value and providing that information is going to reduce your list churn. And keep in mind, the basic foundational principle in all this, it's about them and not us. So thinking about those customers, asking them, putting them first, that should really be the driving factor for your content. So how do we do that, right? Once we get those kinds of, input, that type of feedback, how do we coordinate email and social? Well, there are a bunch of ways to do that. One of the most important we found, this is another one of our small business customers, Nikki and Stitches, who's gotten a lot of attention. She's done great work. Again, it speaks to the value of content and building relationships. She's been featured on Craft Wars. If you look at this homepage on our site, what I think is particularly interesting, if you look at those three different boxes, for the blog, for Twitter, and Facebook, is that they all have different content, right? What you don't see there is the same story being put out on Twitter, on Facebook, on Google+, right, on the blog, and an email at the same time. You want to take advantage of the different channels and use those ones that your audience uses the way that they should be used, right? You want to play to their strengths. For example, Twitter, obviously, short content. The blog is kind of a key for driving tweets because most of them are going to come back to the blog. But there are hall passes here, as you see on this Twitter news, so there's kind of a special. So maybe a different promotion that wasn't showing up on the blog. If the blog is used for the silhouette sketch pen simple technique, you'll see that that's a little bit different. And then even the Facebook, that update is completely different from the other two, right? It's just a little news tidbit. It's a little bit more relational. So if you think about some of the other channels, right, YouTube, Pinterest, Google+, if your brand is putting out the exact same content across all 4, 5, 6, 7, as many of those different channels that you're using at the same time, people are going to start shying away from that because it's going to look more like that blah, 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 right? Like that it's all about us, not about them. Using these channels a little bit differently and keeping them in terms of playing to their strengths is a big feature that you're going to want to use. Another really good example that I found of tying email into social and using that as a feedback channel is from Christopher Penn's weekly email, which first of all is a great read. I would highly recommend it, christopherspenn.com if you haven't seen it. And at the end of every issue, you can see right there, this concludes this week's edition. Send me your feedback, love it, hate it, leave it on this Facebook thread. This is such a cool idea. What he does with every issue, when he creates a newsletter, and he's getting ready to send it out, he creates a Facebook thread, right, just a simple post, comment, plugs that into this email newsletter, and then when the newsletter goes out, people can give their feedback directly on the Facebook page. So it helps drive a lot of the email recipients to the Facebook site, right to the Facebook page. It helps them interact and get involved. A lot of it is very positive because it's a great newsletter, but sometimes people ask questions, sometimes people go, this or that, but it starts a dialogue. It's another great way to use email and social together in a very simple, easy to construct way to get that information, to find out what people want, what they don't want, and to get their response and to build that relationship. One more quick example here as well for emails. This is one that I think AppSumo does very well. If you guys are familiar with AppSumo, they do deals for tech geeks. At the bottom of every email there, they not only stop at the share and tweet buttons, they use a little comment box, right? If you click in that image and hit comment, it will take you directly back to their site in the comments section. The deals are posted on the blog, and they get dozens to hundreds of comments on each deal. One of the big ways that they do that is using this comment feature at the footer of every email, right? Providing an additional call to action at the end of an email, whether it's to your social channels like Facebook and Twitter, as you see there, or commenting back to the blog, using that to help drive those different users and different audiences together. So if they're just email, getting them the social, getting them to interact, getting that feedback, great way to build a relationship. One more thing that they do particularly well On the unsubscribe, they offer the social as a fallback option, right? So if you click on the AppSumo to unsubscribe, they give you the frequency option, right? They let you better customize your experience by segmenting if you're looking to grow or create a business. And then if you're getting too much, they say, hey, that's fine. If you don't really want to get the email, stick with us on the social channels. How many of you in the audience are using a method like this with your emails, or methods kind of like a couple that we've looked at just now, where you're tying those emails and those social channels together, at least going this direction? Just drop a quick yes or no or a little bit about what you're doing in the Q&A section, and we'll try and pick that up a little bit later on as we go through the discussions. This is another example what we do with our own emails and trying to get that cross-promotional factor there. We use the app for Facebook. As you can see, that sign up right there. It's very easy to promote your email. We use Twitter up there as well. And like some of the other examples that we've seen, we take a very different approach. Our emails are dedicated almost completely to our blog content and some of the other events and guide content that we have. On our social streams, like Twitter and Facebook, we mix those up a lot more. We showcase a lot of our partners, a lot of customers, a lot of people who are using our service. Since many of our users are blog producers and publishers, we make it very, very easy to kind of promote what they do. There are a lot of good blogs, a lot of good topical information, and we spread that through the different channels and try and focus on different aspects of relevant information, but in a little bit of a broader sense, so that it's, again, not just about us and our information, but it's really about our audience, our customers, and trying to build a community that lets people see they can get different information in different types and different formats on these different channels. So they're not going to see the same thing when they touch either the Facebook or the Twitter or the Pinterest page or the Instagram page, etc. A couple quick takeaways from that. Being strategic about your posting, playing to each channel's strengths, right? Using the different timing and the different formats, Google Plus for perhaps longer posts versus Facebook and Twitter, obviously for shorter ones. Pinterest, we know the visual side. A lot of those are self-explanatory, but really getting in the habit of doing that and making that a firm process is a big part of what we need to do a little bit more to build these relationships. And then experimenting with curation, right? Going beyond your own brand and thinking about how you can get information that's relevant to the audience. When you know what they want, you know a lot more about how to deliver it, and that's huge. One quick question for the Q&A. How are we doing on pacing? I think I feel pretty good right now, but am I going too fast? Am I going too slow? Should I pick it up a little bit? Just give me a quick comment in the Q&A how we're doing on pacing for you. Good? Good? Okay, excellent. Sounds like we're doing well. Beautiful, just right, good. Thank you very much. Christine, Frank, Heather, you guys, thank you so much for those comments. Let's jump into number 3, how to use this content to really grow your community, right? And we've seen a couple of examples of that already. Just to reinforce it a little bit more, this is a piece from thinktraffic.net, and one of the things that I love about this, I mean, Wrapup posts and expert posts and guest posts, they're nothing new, right? They aren't rocket science, but one of the things that really stood out for me about this one, and this page explains it, I don't want to read it all to you, but you can find it at thinktraffic.net. What they did for this post, as you can see in the bold down below, I sat down for each and every one of the 35 people featured and did in-depth research about what they were currently working on and up to next, right? It goes beyond just kind of citing experts, pulling quotes, doing kind of the usual sort of link bait, you know, type of post, the roundup posts. And I don't mean that in a detrimental sense, but, you know, we know that there are certain ways that you can put a post together like that pretty quickly. If you take that kind of concept and you go a little bit further with that, right, if you dig a little deeper, it's really going to stand out. This post got a ton of shares, and again, it's really a way to sort of get beyond your own brand. There's not a lot in it about Think Traffic. It's all about focusing on the other people, the other experts, the other faces and personas that you see there, and think about how that's going to build that relationship, right? again, think about the networking example that we talked about earlier. Tell me about yourself, what your business, what can I help you with, what do you do? That's the kind of research that went into this blog post, not just a tweet roundup, not just a couple chats. This is something that, you know, got a very big response, and it goes beyond just the brand itself. Same kind of example here from another site, Pocket Change, is taking those, you know, taking those same entrepreneurs, the online podcasters, doing a roundup post. Think about the value for people who are focused on podcasting and entrepreneurs and what they would learn from that. Spotlighting those, really kind of featuring other helpful resources that may or may not have any real connection to your business, but after you've gotten those kinds of connections there and you've done that type of promotion, that's going to create those kinds of relationships, both with your audience as well as the people that you're putting in the spotlight. Customers is another great way to do this, obviously. One brand that I think you guys are probably very familiar with, SEO Moz, and hopefully, if you're not familiar with SEO Moz already, I highly recommend them as well. They do a couple things really well in terms of connecting with the audience and using the kind of content, using that relationship-based content. They do the Whiteboard Friday, where the CEO Rand Fishkin does just a quick, short, you know, sometimes 15 minutes, sometimes 20-minute video, kind of outlining things on the whiteboard, so you feel a little bit more like you're in the room, right? You're in kind of a strategy or a content session. He's explaining different topics, and one thing that I thought really stood out for not just this idea, which obviously a lot of brands are using video and stuff like that, but what they've done to build up their community. At the bottom of this post, which you can't really see, they have tons of comments on this, right? You can see right there, there are close to 900 likes on it. But the first comment on this post really struck me because the commenter actually included 4 different links to the SEO Moz site that were examples of what Rand was talking about in the video. Think about what kind of community you have developed when you're getting the kind of comments on your blog post that someone not just came to your site, watched the video, right, went through it, thought about the fact that there were a couple of examples missing that would be helpful for the rest of the audience, found those links, and then plugged those into the blog comment on the site, right? That's powerful. I mean, that is the power of really strong content and using that relationship, that personal approach, putting yourself in the video, right, just making these kinds of what seemingly minor changes or ideas, rolling them into your content, and what results they can produce. The other big thing that they do extremely well, I think, is using their Moz blog, right? So they have the main blog, which is company-driven, and the Moz blog is community-driven. So people can submit guest posts there, and then they let their community and their audience vote up or down. As you can see, the thumbs up and the thumbs down on some of those posts. The ones that really catch fire and get a lot of different a lot of different looks and a lot of thumbs up, those are the ones that make it over to the main blog, right? Think about how you might be able to kind of take, and if it doesn't work necessarily for your blog model, you could think about using this similar idea in Google Plus or Facebook or your social channels if you're using Tumblr, right? Other ways to kind of get your community involved. Pinterest is another way if you're kind of dealing with photography or a lot of visuals, Instagram. But think about this kind of farm team concept, as it were, as a way to kind of build a community around your content and help that community contribute to your own content. A lot of the best posts on the main blog come from the Moz blog. The audience knows that they can vote on them. They know that good stuff can be there, and they know that they have a shot at getting on there as well. So it touches on the aspirational chord for the audience, and that is very strong for building up the kind of community that they have, right? Really rabid fans and evangelists. It's huge. Another really very straightforward way, how many of you guys participate in Twitter chats on a regular basis? Or in fact, if you actually host one, please let us know in the Q&A as well for that. Twitter chats are one of the simplest things that you can do. Participating in one is a great way to start. You can find out a ton about your audience. Blog chat, small biz chat. This is a great example from our friends over at Exact Target for their ET Cafe chat. You know, they kind of host it, and they do it on a regular basis every Thursday. They talk about emerging trends and topics across interactive marketing. I like what they do with their blog and their email here on the right. You can see that they preview some of their discussion questions, right? They go a step further than some blog chats by helping to set up that type of thinking ahead of time. And I think that pays off a lot in what we see in the discussions. I like to try and follow some of these different chats, see how they work. And if you think about how you could use this same type of format with either Google Hangouts or Twitter chats, you know, you can do live Facebooking. It doesn't matter which channel per se, but this idea of setting those expectations, putting your brand out there, inviting your community to connect with you in real time and give you that feedback. You see a lot of links there. That's very useful. It's very good as far as discovery on both ends, and it's great for building those relationships. You know, the people who come over and over again, you start to see who your real fans and who your real evangelists are. That's very easy for them to share as well. So these are great ways to kind of take that social aspect and use that to build those relationships. One more real fast. This is from Buffer, the Buffer blog. You guys are probably familiar with Buffer as a tool that helps scheduling with social posts. And one thing that I noticed when I went to their blog a little while ago was some of their blog topics were completely out of left field in terms of what I was thinking about I would expect from, you know, a corporate blog. It didn't talk all about the product. It didn't even talk all about social media, right, and posting. Here are a couple of examples that were extremely popular with, you know, you can see the first one there, how to rewire your brain for positivity and happiness. Almost 1,000 tweets back at that point. The psychology of language, which words matter the most when we talk. It gave me a great sense of how, you know, they are challenging expectations about what you expect from visiting a brand's blog, where a lot of times it can be about the product, it can be about the culture, it can even be about using the service or things like that, or you know, marketing. But they've done a really nice job in going beyond those topics that you would expect to see there, and they make you think, right? Which is one of the things, you know, when we go back to that very first slide, that crap slide in the content marketing deluge, blogs that make you think about something that's a degree or two different from what we're all used to reading and seeing, that's very powerful these days, especially as content wraps up. You can see by the numbers on some of these shares here how attractive it is, and how you know, how they make it easy to share and how that catches on. So think about different ways that you can diversify your content, right? If you thought, well, maybe that's not relevant to our audience, you know what? Test something like this. You might be very surprised. I'm sure that the first couple times they did this, they had to go out on a limb, and they weren't necessarily sure where that was going to lead. But if you look at the way that their blog is going now and some of these shares for some of these topics that are off the beaten path, you know, they're definitely working. So that's an idea that you can take back right away and consider. Think about a blog post that, you know, has been proposed in the past year, and maybe you thought, well, you know, maybe that's just too far out for our readers. Give it a shot. See what happens. The worst that can happen is it doesn't get shared, right? It goes back into the stream, and you learn something. Try it a couple times. But it's a great concept to test. A couple of the takeaways there, obviously shining the spotlight on others, that's huge. We need to keep doing that with customers, with partners. Using quality to attract guest content, making it very easy for our community to contribute, whether it's through chats, whether it's through guest blog posts, or the, you know, the farm team example we looked at with you, Moz, and diversifying that content mix, right? Going a little bit further, challenging ourselves to kind of go beyond some of those topics we get caught up in, email, social, using them back and forth, and finding out which ones work in certain channels or which ones don't. That's a great way to help diversify how you spread up content that goes to email and then goes to social channel XYZ. Number 4, we're going to zoom through this one pretty quickly because I touched on it very, very early on. But the value, the what's in it for me, and the kind of wow moments that we saw with you know, the fab unsubscribe email, things that really stand out in our audience's minds. How we provide that can come in a lot of different ways. This is a great example I've found from Raven Tools. They do a welcome series of 5 emails when you sign up for a trial for their product, right? But if you look at this email, and welcome series in and of themselves are one of the most underused, undervalued tools for brands, and I really hope that a lot more brands will start using and taking advantage of the power of welcome emails and welcome email series. But this one I particularly like because if you look at this really quickly, you don't even have to read the whole thing. You can just skim it and see that the what's in it for me goes through every aspect of this, right? The subject line, step 4, build reports in minutes, not hours. Perfect. You're saving me time, right? That's great. That's a huge relief. First intro copy by the 4th lesson in the series. We hope you're really seeing how Raven can save you time and make you money, right? It's not features, it's benefits. There's a huge what's in it for me. You're going to save me time and make me money. Results plus reports equals success, right? Look at that title under the left video. Watch what Raven reports can do for you, right? And then bonus points because they use status indicators. That helps to preview the content and set those expectations. I know I'm on step 4 or 5. It also helps me navigate. If I missed one, I can go back. If I need to skip forward, I can do that right away. So there's a lot of great usability design with this email. It looks great mobile too. But again, using that welcome series with a very strong what's in it for me and understanding what I'm going to need to do by the time I get this email, by the 4th email in the series, that shows that they're really putting the customer first, that they are anticipating my needs, they're making it very easy and very functional for me to interact with this product. And I mean, that has a huge impact on usage and success and conversions. A special incentive for your welcome emails. This is the example from the Nicky and Stitches site that we saw before. This is a great kind of mini wow moment. You know, when you sign up, it doesn't detail exactly what you're going to get, but when you get this first welcome message, you get a little free gift. Thank you so much for subscribing. Just a little thank you. And you can see even below that link there, you'll be directed to a, quote, secret page on the website. Just enter the password to start downloading, printing your cards and envelopes right away. Think about how that, you know, makes you feel when you receive that. Oh, I just signed up. I got a little password. I got a secret page. I'm feeling like an insider, right? Like a VIP. Another one of our customers, the Lingerie Addict, does kind of a similar approach. This is their welcome email. So glad you're a very important addict. As I mentioned, at the sign-up box, discounts, promotions, etc. Boom, right here, first off the bat, you get a 15% discount with a special code. Again, this is not necessarily, you know, this isn't what we're talking about as cutting edge or rocket science here. Using incentives and discounts and things like that for sign-ups and emails is very straightforward. It's very easy to do, but so many brands are still not doing it. You know, we still get so many welcome emails that say, thank you for subscribing, look for an email soon, right? Or add us to your whitelist and keep your eye out for our next newsletter, something like that. You have to take advantage of the momentum when somebody is really excited about receiving more information from you and starting that relationship, whether it's email, especially email, but social too. You really need to kind of capture that and strike while the iron is hot. Give them a wow moment, whether it's a discount, whether it's a special gift, whether it's kind of you know, secret access or feeling like an insider. And using that at this particular time can have a massive impact on your conversion rates and your usage. And because it starts the relationship on such a good, strong foot, it's going to help that engagement over time in a way that starting people on your email series without something like that is just not going to do. When it comes to being, you know, being straightforward with your readers and really developing those relationships, this is an example that I really liked, again, from AppSumo. Just at some point last year, apparently it was October, judging by the timestamp on this, they changed their model a little bit. They were getting a little bit too, as they mentioned right here in the email themselves, a little too overzealous, right? Deals that were just okay, and, you know, they weren't putting the customer first. They hit the reset button and sort of changed their model a little bit. They promoted products less. You can see in those bullets. Ensure that every email stands out, and they actually do a really good job with their email. I would highly recommend signing up for them because their emails are very engaging. They use humor, they use personality, all the keys. And then right there, the third bullet, is one of my favorites. Email you when it's right for you, not us, right? Not a daily email, not the deluge, right? Not the crap, not the blah, blah, blah. This is a lot more like that fab model that we're seeing. We need to make sure that the value is there before we hit send, so that it's about you and not about us, right? They lay all this out, they sign it, it's very personal, it's a great approach, and if you're finding that you are, seeing less engagement with your audience, whether it's email, social, things like that, this could be the reason. Think about, your frequency. Think about what it is that you're putting out there, and if it meets these criteria. And if it doesn't, maybe this is a way to go. Maybe not this dramatic, but being straightforward with your customers, talking with them like people, letting them know that you want to put them first. A couple of quick takeaways there. Obviously, you get a lot more out of your welcome emails or series. Gifts, freebies, rewards, oh my. I mean, those are a very simple way to kind of plug into that email and really get that relationship off to a good start. And social you can do as well in different ways. You can connect those two pretty simply, and there are plenty of examples of that. And setting expectations and then surpassing them, right? Using that what's in it for me, putting that real value in there, having those little nice surprises, those wow moments, those things that Zappos gets lauded for, when its support representatives send you a quick postcard after they had a 5-minute call from you and you didn't expect it, or you're going to get, an extra free pair in your box. Those are the kinds of things that really make a difference. And last up, make it very, very easy to stay connected, right? You take these ideas, you work on building a bigger audience, getting connected with them, and trying to get a relationship off to a good, strong start. You want to make sure that you're giving them what they need as far as their frequency, the kind of information they want, that value. There are a couple of ways to do that. Obviously, setting up expectations on the front end is one of the best ways. I've seen some more different examples of this, and most of us are very familiar with the standard sign-up form, name, email, very low barrier to entry. But I'm seeing more creative approaches coming on a little bit now. John Loomer is one that great site, a lot of excellent social media information. This is definitely a site you want to check out if social media is important to you, which hopefully it is if you're on here. His sign-up page actually has been using this approach: get everything or get a little, right? Stay informed with the daily, don't miss a thing. Stay informed with the twice weekly, catch most of it. Even outlines it right there, specifically in bold. Value, frequency, right? Giving the user a choice. Obviously, we know that as far as conversion goes, you don't want to give your customers or prospects too many choices, but having a simple choice between daily and twice weekly, most of it or all of it, is a very interesting test. And knowing the amount of testing that he does, I'm fairly certain that this is working pretty well as far as engagement rates will be on those lists, helping to sort of keep the open rates strong and keeping them from going into bounce rates or being filtered out of webmail because of inaction. Another pretty interesting one, another small business on our customer list that deals with organic and health type content, Summer Tomato, actually went out and did 3 different options, right? 1 is the monthly newsletter, 2 is email articles, 3, taking the RSS feed, right? You can think about ways to use this approach with social as well as a bit of a way to kind of change it up. You'll see that on the Summer Tomato example, there are the standard social media icons across the top. They're there, we see them, we know what they are. But another test that might be interesting if you're considering different ways to help people sign up to receive your information is using email for the 1 or 2 different email kinds of frequency models, or a social, and checking out, comparing against the 2, which ones work best, and then maybe using that email capture in social signups as well. So there are a lot of different ways to go, but the real idea here, the real key, is to kind of give customers the keys. Let them drive. Let them dictate the frequency and the methodology by which they're receiving your information. When it comes time for them to leave, this is another opportunity that often gets lost. Obviously, unsubscribing is something you want to make very easy, but you can really get a lot of value out of collecting that information from people when they leave. This takes us almost full circle to, thinking we know what our audience wants, but not really asking. At the unsubscribe process, it's a great way to figure out what it is that didn't resonate for your audience, right? This one newsletter does a pretty good job with a very short form. One, is it too many emails, never signed up, etc., and then an open-ended comment box or suggestions. Just let us know. Some brands do it with a little bit more humor, and they try and make it a little bit, a little bit funny on the way out. Is it over? We're really going to miss you, and that's that human approach we talked about. Even if they go, it's sort of ending on a different note, but those different frequency options right there on the opt-out part are another way to kind of maintain some of the audience if they're just looking for a different frequency and they like the information, they're just getting too much of it and they're not going to use it. Give them that option, right? Help them stay connected. And as we saw also with the AppSumo example, if they really want to go, just ask them a quick why. And most of the times they'll share it with you. That information can be as valuable as that welcome email survey info that we saw at the front end, right? Think about what you can do with all of that information that you're soliciting, and you can put that together. Think of how that can shape your content, your marketing channels, and everything that you put through your system. It's going to have a much bigger effect on your overall conversion and ROI rates than a lot of the different tactical stuff, because you're going to be meeting your audience's needs and you're going to be building better relationships. So the quick takeaways from that: make your opt-ins stand out, right? However you set up your form, that's a great place to test and set those expectations. See if multiple options might work for you, connecting email to social or the frequency side. And then if it does come to breakups, you know what? Have a little bit of fun with it. See what you can do. Put that personal approach in there at the end. Learn from it and try and use that to make your content that much stronger and to try and make the other relationships that much stronger. My parting thought, and we're getting ready to wrap it up and do some quick Q&A. There are many ways that we can build lists. There are hundreds of tactics out there, and there are a lot of great sites featuring a lot of information on those. But really, I think from a foundational principle, one of the things we as marketers need to really focus on is some of these things that we can do to build relationships. And it's not heavy lifting. We've seen some very simple examples here, things that you can plug into email, that you can do with social channels, that you can use to complement them back and forth, and really go beyond just, building a 10% or 20% gain in your lists. If you can take some of these ideas and strengthen the relationships with the lists that you already have, we all know the value of retention and how much more important it can be to retain customers you already have, because it's easier than trying to go out and grow new lists and try and attract new people. That can be a very big boon to your email and your social channels, right? So think about some of these ideas, some of these very quick suggestions and test ideas that we talked about, how they can build relationships, how they can have a major impact on your content, and then hopefully you can take a couple of these and really just work them into your program, work them into tests, and put them into action very soon. So with that, I just wanted to mention, as we try and wrap these things up, we have a free ebook on optimizing your email campaign. Please feel free to reach out to me on Twitter or via email. My email is there. If you'd like to get the book, and I'd love to hear your feedback on the session here today as well. Obviously, we also have the logout survey. So if you have to go in a couple minutes when we're going to try and take some questions, please use just a minute or two to fill that out. Give us your feedback. We're going to go through all of them. If we have some additional questions, maybe there'll be a blog post or a follow-up session, but I definitely want to hear your thoughts on today's session. And right now, really quickly, just before kind of wrap up into the Q&A, I mentioned at the beginning my goal here was to give you 2 to 3 ideas that you could take away and really start working with very quickly. And I would love it if you could just plug in the Q&A real fast if I did that. If you got at least 2 to 3 ideas that you can wrap your arms around, tests that you can run, or ways that you can get in touch with your audience, and that you can just take back to the office and start running with to help your email and social. So please just drop a yes, or if you think you didn't, then no, you're nuts. I can take it. And then while we're looking at some of those coming in, let's do some Q&A. What do you think, Sean?
Yeah, Thank you so much. Excellent job. I learned a lot myself. Let's open it up for some questions. Does anybody have any questions for Hunter about anything at all relating to social, email, content?
Let's see. First of all, thanks everybody for the feedback on getting a couple of ideas. That is really gratifying. I'm glad to hear that. And excellent. Great. Let's see. Let's look at a couple of questions. Will the video be available? Yes. We are working to make that available. We are recording the session. The feedback form, when you log out of GoToWebinar, it should pop up. So, if we get a couple questions here and, we're done on the way out, that's a great place to add that. No, Joanna didn't get a couple of ideas to take away. Sorry, Joanna. Email me and maybe we'll give you some that are specific to what you're looking for. Great. All right, terrific. More than a couple of ideas. Fantastic. Wow, ideas, beautiful. Any topic-related content questions for email and social for you guys? And if not, like I said, if you have to jump out, fill out the survey. We'll take those, and then we'll try and answer some of those, maybe in a follow-up blog post or via your email from registration, if you like.
It looks like we got a question from Tom. He's interested in hearing your take on best usage for HTML email compared to text email in markets.
Oh,
today.
Thanks, Tom. That is a great question. So here's the tough part with that question. It's not so much the markets that that determine that. Honestly, what we've found is for certain emailers, they just actually won't switch to HTML because text has worked so well for them, and they have tested HTML and they have found it to be, definitely a lot less effective. It really depends less on the markets per se than a bit more about your product or service and your approach, right? So if you are, say for example, an individual or service provider, I get a lot of individual emails. Derek Halpern's Social Triggers is a great example, right? It uses HTML, but it looks like a text email. It looks like that personal letter. Excuse me. He does include a video screenshot most of the time when it's a video post, but a lot of them for blog posts and things like that look very much like the example that we saw, just like the welcome email. And there's a reason that he and others keep using that. The response rates on that are huge. It's very easy to render on mobile, right? So that's one thing that's obviously very popular. The way that the link just stands out is also very popular with a lot of HTML email newsletters. Sometimes the temptation to over-design can happen, and honestly, that can, depending on what your conversion or what your engagement goals are, that can really detract from the experience. If people have a whole lot of visuals, it's not quite clear where they want to click or where you want them to go. So I would say if you're testing, try a text versus HTML test. A lot of different brands and a lot of organizations, a lot of our customers have done it, and they found surprising results one way or another. So a site that I would recommend actually is Which Test One. If you're not familiar with it, WHICHTESTWON. Every week they do a test. A lot of them are email, a lot of them are landing pages, but they give you a quick choice. You try and decide, and then they give you the answer. They ran a text versus HTML not long ago, and a lot of people were surprised. You would think that the HTML looked better, right? We want to go with the pretty one, but it doesn't always convert as well. So my best recommendation is test it for yourself and see what results you get, and look for a couple other ones that sort of fit your model, not just market, but maybe your product or service and your audience, and see how that works for you. Thank you for the question too. It's a great one.
Let's maybe one or two more. Let's see here. We've got Peter. He's asking, do you have a schedule system for the different communication streams? So,
Yes. Yes. Actually, Peter, thanks. That's another great question. One of the things that we use is a content calendar. There are a lot of different ways organizations can do this, whether it's Google Docs or whether you have a system. There are systems like Wrapup, which is a really good one that's really designed to help kind of keep different content streams from different contributors, keep it streamlined and mapped out. On a very simple level, I know that a lot of organizations just use a basic Excel document. And in fact, in one of my other presentations, I always point to a link on Content Marketing Institute website. They have a free, downloadable, customizable Excel spreadsheet that just helps you sort out, by week and different columns what you're putting in your blog and your email and your social feeds so that you can kind of keep your content straight with different teams. And again, Excel documents are sort of, Google Docs are like, the bare minimum way to go, but absolutely have some type of process like that, some kind of schedule. If you have even more than 2 contributors, you're going to need that to keep things on track. And then again, if you find a much bigger need, there are systems like a Wrapup or like a Curate. There are a lot of companies growing up now to try and help with that, with that need. So those are a couple of different ways to do it, but absolutely do it. Use that scheduling tool, even if it's just Hootsuite for your social channels and something else for your blog and emails. You absolutely want to get a schedule together. So thanks, great question.
and then looks like we'll just one more quick one. Matthew, he's asking, what is a good number of questions to ask in a customer survey?
It depends on a lot of factors, and thanks, Michael. That is a great question. I've done a lot of surveys, actually, in a different presentation. I also have a case study on what we did to increase our survey uptick by 550%, and one of the things that was a factor in that was not so much the length of the survey, but it was the incentive that we used. So one of the big things for surveys is how much pain is the recipient going to go through to fill it out, right? If it's a couple of pages long or 10 questions, something like that, you're going to need a motivator. So you're going to need a really good incentive, whether that's Amazon gift cards, Starbucks gift cards. A lot of people use iPads. Whatever your prize is, it should be relevant. But that's going to be one of the biggest factors. If you do short surveys, like the one that I featured from Derek that's 4 questions long, that's kind of a no-brainer, right? It's set up in a way that he's asking for a favor. The timing is right. It's very short. It's compact. There's not a lot of pain. And he expresses the benefit up front, right? He says, I do a lot of local events. I'm going to let you know if I'm coming to your town, and some other information that's going to help you get better information. So framing your survey with the what's in it for me is super important. The length, if you use Survey Gizmo or Survey Monkey, they have tools that estimate the time it'll take to fill out a survey, so keep an eye on that. So, if you find it feels really complex, scale it back a little bit. And if you're really looking to get detailed information, then try a higher level incentive that's going to get you the kind of information you want. And those are a couple of the keys, I think, for getting the best results from from different surveys. The other thing that you could do, I always suggest this, is you can break it up. If you're using email or using social, you can take one quick poll question or one quick survey question at a time, and then sort of consolidate those if your audience doesn't like really long surveys. So you can break it up and make it a lot less painful. So those are a couple of ideas that you might want to try. Hopefully those will work, and I hope you'll let me know if you try some.
Great. Thank you so much, Hunter. So that about wraps everything up. I want to thank everyone for joining us again, and especially Hunter and AWeber Communications for giving us the opportunity to present, and for Textbroker's folks. Looking forward to have you speak again and come back and talk about some other stuff. And yeah, Textbroker, yeah, we really like AWeber, and looking forward to having you present again, and sometime shortly in the near future.